Comida era o único prazer que a gente tinha.
Season 8 of 1,000 Pound Sister wasn't just emotional. It was breaking Amy Slaton. Under family pressure, losing time with her children, and pushed beyond her limits, Amy is now considering walking away from the show forever. This is the story no one was supposed to see. For nearly a decade, Amy Slaton has lived her life in front of an audience. What began as a raw, unfiltered look into two sisters battling obesity, poverty, and personal demons eventually evolved into one of reality television's most recognizable franchises. But as Sister enters its 8th season, the story behind the cameras has grown far darker than what viewers see on screen. According to interviews, on-set sources, and conversations with individuals close to the production, Amy Slaton is facing what many now describe as the most devastating period of her life. More alarming still, she is reportedly considering a decision that could permanently alter the future of the series, stepping away from the show entirely and refusing to continue working under the weight of constant pressure. This is not a dramatic publicity stunt. It is not a temporary pause. Insiders say this is the result of years of emotional strain finally reaching a breaking point. A season marketed as growth, but defined by strain. Season 8 of 1,000 Pound Sister was introduced as a turning point. Tammy's transformation, new family dynamics, and personal reinvention were meant to signal progress, but behind the scenes, Amy's experience moved in the opposite direction. Viewers have noticed the shift. Amy appears quieter, less engaged. Her reactions feel restrained, sometimes distant. Her humor, once central to her screen presence, appears forced or absent. According to multiple sources, this is not an act. It is exhaustion. Those close to the production describe a woman emotionally depleted by the demands of filming and the expectations placed upon her. Amy has reportedly expressed that the show no longer feels like an opportunity, but an obligation she is struggling to survive. The pressure that never turns off. In a recent interview, Amy admitted she feels overwhelmed by pressure, a statement that barely scratches the surface of what insiders describe. That pressure comes from every direction: family, producers, audience expectations, and the internal weight of being perceived as the strong one for years. Family members, sources say, often expect Amy to remain functional regardless of her emotional state. When she struggles, the response is not rest or support, but urgency. Scenes still need to be filmed, conversations still need to happen, stories still need to move forward, so. Production insiders describe a relentless schedule that leaves little room for recovery. Emotional moments are revisited repeatedly. Conflicts are prolonged. Vulnerability is captured, replayed, and dissected. Amy reportedly feels she has lost control over how her life is portrayed. What she experiences privately becomes public consumption, often without her consent or emotional readiness. A family dynamic that has turned inward. The Slaton family has always been portrayed as chaotic but united. In reality, sources say that unity has fractured. Amy reportedly feels caught in the middle of family expectations and personal limits she is no longer able to meet. What once felt like mutual dependence now feels like constant demand. Amy has allegedly told people close to her that she feels more like a responsibility manager than a sister, daughter, or individual. This dynamic has intensified as the show has continued. With every season, emotional stakes increase, conflicts escalate, privacy disappears. Amy's role in the family, once defined by caregiving and emotional labor, has become a source of resentment and burnout. Insiders say she feels taken for granted, expected to absorb stress without complaint. The deterioration of the sister bond. Perhaps the most painful development is the breakdown of Amy's relationship with Tammy. For years, their bond defined 1,000 Pound Sister. They were inseparable in struggle, locked in a cycle of dependence and survival. But Season 8 reveals a shift that insiders say has been building for years. Tammy's physical and emotional progress has altered the balance between them. While publicly celebrated, that progress has quietly left Amy without a role she spent years occupying. She is no longer the caretaker, no longer the anchor. And according to sources, she does not feel replaced. she feels erased. Arguments between the sisters reportedly extend beyond what viewers see. Off-camera tensions, unresolved resentment, and emotional distance have grown more frequent. Amy reportedly feels her pain is now minimized, especially when compared to Tammy's success narrative. The emotional cost of this shift cannot be overstated. Amy once centered her identity around being needed. Losing that role has left her questioning her value, both within her family and within the show. Motherhood under relentless scrutiny. Amy's children were meant to represent a new beginning. Instead, motherhood has become another source of guilt and emotional strain. In interviews, Amy has admitted she struggles to spend meaningful time with her children. Sources say filming schedules, emotional exhaustion, and constant obligations leave her feeling disconnected from the role she values most. What makes this especially painful is the lack of separation between personal life and production. Parenting struggles are not private moments. They are filmed, discussed, and analyzed. Amy has reportedly expressed fear that her children will one day watch her worst moments on television. That fear, insiders say, has deeply affected her mental health. Signs of withdrawal on set. By mid-season, production members noticed a shift. Amy began limiting conversations. She avoided extended filming days. Her participation became minimal. Sources describe frequent moments where Amy appeared emotionally shut down. She was present physically, but absent emotionally. A coping mechanism, according to those close to her. Off-camera, insiders report breakdowns, isolation, and repeated discussions about leaving the show. These conversations were not impulsive. They were quiet, serious, and persistent. Amy has reportedly told friends that she feels trapped between financial stability and emotional survival. The decision taking shape. As filming continued, the idea of stepping away became more concrete. According to sources, Amy began questioning whether any amount of fame or income justified the emotional damage she was experiencing. TLC has not publicly addressed these claims, but insiders say there is growing concern behind the scenes. Losing Amy would fundamentally alter 1,000-Pound Sister. She is not just a cast member. She is part of the show's emotional foundation. But for Amy, the calculation appears personal, not professional. Season the 8th of May ultimately be remembered not as a triumph, but as the moment when the cost of living publicly became unbearable. And this is only the first chapter. By the time cameras were deep into Season 8 of 1,000-Pound Sister, Amy Slaton's struggle was no longer confined to family conflict or personal exhaustion. According to multiple individuals familiar with the production, a second, more invisible force had begun shaping her decline: the machinery of reality television itself. What viewers saw as isolated emotional moments were, insiders say, part of a broader pattern of pressure, repetition, and narrative control that left Amy feeling stripped of autonomy over her own life. When reality becomes a product. Reality television depends on conflict, vulnerability, and escalation. For years, Amy willingly participated in that system. She understood the format, accepted the compromises, and believed the exposure was worth the opportunity it gave her family. But sources say Season 8 marked a turning point. According to production insiders, Amy increasingly resisted revisiting emotionally painful topics on camera. Conversations about family tension, motherhood stress, and her deteriorating relationship with Tammy were not one-time discussions. They were revisited repeatedly, often from different angles, until producers felt they had enough material. This repetition, sources say, became emotionally destabilizing. Scenes that appeared spontaneous were often filmed multiple times. Emotional reactions were revisited days later. Conflicts that Amy believed were resolved were reopened for clarity, emphasis, or narrative continuity. She never got to move on. One source familiar with filming said, every time she started to stabilize, the story pulled her back into the same pain. Selective editing and the loss of control. One of the most damaging elements for Amy, according to those close to her, was the realization that she no longer controlled how her emotions were presented. Reality television editing condenses hours of footage into minutes, Nuance disappears, context fades. What remains is what fits the episode's arc. Sources claim Amy became increasingly distressed watching episodes air, feeling that her emotional reactions were presented without sufficient context. Moments of frustration appeared without the exhaustion that preceded them. Tears were shown without the conversations that led to them. Amy reportedly expressed concern that she was being framed as unstable or disengaged rather than overwhelmed. She felt like the audience was seeing her worst moments without seeing why she got there, a source said, and once that image is out there, you can't take it back. These concerns, insiders say, were raised privately but rarely resolved to her satisfaction. The needs of storytelling consistently outweighed personal discomfort. The divorce that accelerated everything. Amy's personal life outside of filming was already unraveling. Her divorce, though handled quietly on screen, had a profound impact behind the scenes. Sources close to Amy say the emotional fallout was far greater than viewers realized. Single motherhood, financial stress, and public scrutiny converged at the same time filming demands intensified. According to insiders, Amy felt there was little room to process the end of her marriage privately. Questions, speculation, and subtle references continued even when she attempted to keep that chapter separate from the show. The divorce also altered how Amy perceived her role within the family. Without a partner to share emotional and logistical responsibilities, the weight of expectations became unbearable.